Hey D&D YouTubers, my name is Dr. DM, and today I'm bringing you something extra spicy, extra special. This is a breakdown of D&D 1 and the new playtest character origins material that just came out recently. I want to know how it is and let you know my thoughts and let my players know my thoughts as well. If we're going to use this going forward, what's the good, bad, and the ugly? What do we like about it? What we don't like about it? What can we take from it going forward? And what can we submit? What feedback can we give to make it as good as we can, make the next D&D iteration just freaking awesome? So I'm going to go through a few of the sections, the character creation and the feats and the rules glossary and so forth. And let's just get into that. And I have my bracers of unarmored defense, just in case you don't agree with me, which I don't care if you don't. That's great. Leave me a comment and see what we'd love to see what your thoughts are on this material and build D&D better together. So it is Unearthed Arcana 2022, which simply means D&D 1 is not coming out until 2024. So this is an early access, if you will. What you'll find here in this particular playtest are the character races, updated from the Player's Handbook. You can still use 2014 Player's Handbook, but this is what we're going to see going forward. The backgrounds to help flesh out your character's origins and also give stats. The starting languages, which you get more than one now, generally. Feats, we have first level feats, and we'll see that feats will be tied to a particular level going forward, although it's still class agnostic. And the rules glossary. Now this is the spicy tag. This is everyone's like, oh no, critical hits. Now, do I like how they work? Or do I not like how they work? The spells are divided in different sort of categorization, so we'll get into that here soon. So it's all playtest material. And let's get into it. Determine your character's origin. What three things do you need? Race, background, and language. I just did three twice. So let's see. Character origin overview. If your creature type, right? Every creature in the monster has a type. Your size, small, medium. It's generally the case for players, but sometimes there's more options. Your speed, generally 30, but that may change. Lifespan, some are more, especially elves and other races. But other legacy races, although they've been kind of putting that together to many races now are just kind of like your average like 80-year-old. Seeing that since Tasha's on. Special trait, your character's race abilities is what that would be. Then you're going to select the background trait, just gives you, as I said earlier, your ability score, the +2, the +1. Skill proficiencies, which you get 2 from background, you get more from classes, of course, going forward, but that's not in this, the purview of this. Tool proficiency, every character gets tool proficiency, which is fantastic. Language, you get a language from a background. And a feat, everyone gets a level 1 feat. We'll talk more about that. And of course, equipment, which ends up being about 50 gold worth of equipment. So let's move on to the races. Now, I'm not going to cover all the races. There are quite a few. I'll touch on one or two and just to get an idea. Now, I want to give a bit of a note here to this children of different humanoid kinds. So thanks to the magical workings of the multiverse, humanoids of different kinds sometimes have children together. In our campaigns many times. For example, folk who have a human parent and an orc or elf parent are particularly common. Many other combinations are possible. If you'd like to play the child of such a wondrous pairing, choose 2 race options that are humanoid that represent your parents. Then determine which of those race options provide your game traits. Size, speed, special traits, right? The mechanical aspect, right? And then you can mix and match the visual characteristics, colors, ear shape, like, of both the options. And honestly, this isn't really far-fetched how long have half-elves been in the game, right? And this is exactly that, but just now it's been opened to a myriad of possibilities, and it's really going to help you diversify and create really cool, unique characters that you want to embody in this game. Maybe some you've seen even beyond the D&D franchise, right? So, okay, so here's the example. It's a halfling and a gnome parent. You might choose a halfling traits, and then you look more like a gnome with pointed ears. All right. Humans. Now, humans, I think, were always kind of a divisive race because, especially the humans that got the feat, right? The variant human. Now, you can't find a build that doesn't have a variant human, right? Because the level 1 feat. I will spoil, and I think I mentioned this already, that I love feat options level 1. And let's look at the humans just to get an idea of what the abilities look like. Creature type humanoid. Size 4 to 7. Feet 30 feet, lifespan 80 years. Not much has changed there. All right, special traits. Resourceful, you gain inspiration when you finish a long rest. Both of these are in asterisk. We'll talk about them later when we get to the rules glossary. Skillful, proficiency in 1 skill of your choice, extra skill. And versatile, you gain the skilled feat or another level 1 feat of your choice. So humans is still pretty fantastic. And the difference is, instead of choosing any feat, right, a human might choose like the sharpshooter feat or really go for those powerful gamey feats. Well, now you're kind of limited to the first level feats. Here, this XYZ of many worlds, in this case humans. This applied for all the creatures and all the races here going forward. So on any given world in the multiverse, the material culture of humans, elves, dwarves, etc., can change from one region to another. For example, the Forgotten Realms, clothing, architecture, cuisine are widely different in the West Heartlands than that in the frozen north of Icewind Dale. As humans migrate, they bring elements of their cultures with them, giving rise to diverse settlements, not to mention a melody of clothing styles, customs, and beliefs. So you're going to see that now it's more of a what kind of human you are or what kind of gnome you are is more cultural, right, than necessarily that I'm a deep gnome or any kind of other sort of sub-race. All right, one more here, and we'll probably go through the creature section. Ardling, this is one of the new races introduced, supernatural beings, supernal beings from the upper planes. This is Aasimar, but not Aasimar. They have creature-like faces, animal-like faces, I'm sorry. So I guess like a furry Aasimar. So the traits: humanoid, medium, 30 feet, 200 years on average. Ardling has angelic flight. Has bonus action, sprout wings. You can't fly forever, but you can kind of do a limited jump move. And you can use bonus action, number of proficiency bonus times a day. This is going to be more and more of a thing. Your skills and abilities, and maybe even more than that, are now going to be based on your proficiency bonus. So if you have a +2 proficiency bonus at level 1, you can do these things twice a day. And these are expended when you finish a long rest. So flight, always a tough thing to give your players, but this is a little more balanced. It's not like you can just fly around infinitely and go 5,000 feet in the air and avoid all encounters. So, all right, like, the Cape Mario in Super Mario World. All right. Here's some legacies, and you get some first level, third level, fifth level spells from these legacy traits. This also applies to tieflings. Here you do have a bit of a subclass, sub-race theme, but most races don't necessarily have this. So you just level up as you do and get stronger feats. Not necessarily that the spell levels up, but that you get other spells. So, yeah. All right, let's move on here. Oh, Dragonborn. I did see one thing here I wasn't sure about Dragonborn, is that you have your ancestry, you choose your color here, and it's metallic or chromatic. Your breath weapon, unfortunately, now is just an action. I think with fizz bands, you could take one of your actions, if you had extra attack, for example, and only one of those could be used for the breath weapon. So if you have extra attack, breath weapon, and then boom, swing with your axe, right? Now it takes your whole action. Now, we don't know all the new rules because we haven't seen the whole player's handbook. So maybe something's different about extra attack. Now maybe extra attack is just you get another attack action or something. So we'll see how that all plays out. But for now, your whole attack is this breath weapon. It is stronger, but we'll see if it keeps up with the fizz band's equivalent. To character backgrounds. Now, this is very important. We saw in the races do not give attributes, and attributes really help you define your character. It was one of the reasons why you would want to make in previous editions, a barbarian who was an orc to maximize that strength bonus, right? And not all of us are munchkins. Some players would, choose the quote-unquote unoptimized, and not that that matters because it's more about roleplay. Unless you're doing a heavy, dungeon crawling thing. But that sometimes did help define a character. And now, with a free reign of stats linked to your background, you have much more diversity of options, and you don't have to feel like you're being held back in any way. You can build a background, you can make a sample background or choose one. I don't think this is going to, other than unless you're very, very new, I would definitely build your own in this case. And here it is, what everyone wants to see, and what everyone's been talking about, background features, ability scores. When you determine your character's ability scores, choose one of them, increase one by 2, and the other one by 1. Or choose 3 ability scores and increase them each by 1. There were some races, I think, in even the 5th edition. I don't know if it was more than one. I think it was the gold dwarves that had +2, +2, +2 to one stat, +2 to the other. But here it's +2, +1. Your choice. Choose 2 skills. All right, proficiency in them. 1 tool. I think that's fantastic because otherwise before it was like, I really had no choice. Thieves' tools or bust, I guess. An artificer did have other tools, but all right. And then languages. So choose one from standard and rare languages, and on top of what you get for your race, of course. So, which is maybe medieval times. When things were a little more dispersed, you wouldn't find somebody speaking more than one language, but nowadays in for example Europe, people speak multiple languages. So, and this is a fantasy realm, so anything can happen, and there's lots of intermingling. I think Forgotten Realms and many D&D multiverses are like a melting pot. So, okay, ability score increases from elsewhere, so you can't very clearly here, you can't just take the background, the new background rules here, give yourself +2, +1, and then also choose a race from the 2014 handbook, and you have another +2, +1, you have like a total of +6 extra stats. I mean, if your DM's okay for it, go for it, but otherwise, could make for a busted character. All right, sample backgrounds. We'll go through a couple of these and figure it out. So, acolytes. Here's what you get. +2 wisdom, +2 intelligence. You get insight and religion, calligrapher supplies, celestial, communicating with the gods, and the feat, right, is going to be magic initiate in this case, because I didn't scroll up fast before, where you also get a feat that's tied in to your background. And as I mentioned earlier, 50 gold piece. All right, so you devoted your life to service in a temple. This could be a good choice for a cleric, or maybe a thief, and then the thief decided, I don't like this anymore. He decided to steal everything from the temple and start his adventure with 10,000 gold piece. But now this church is on his or her back. So what else do you get? Book of prayers, parchment, supplies, robes, and there's 3 extra gold pieces because it's assumed that the rest of this is about a total of 50 gold pieces. Nothing to see here other than if you'd like to have your character fit in one of these molds, right? Acolyte, soldier, artisan, go for it. It'll make it nice and easy, and especially if you're a new player, be really cool to just get in on the ground running and not have to worry about mixing and matching so much. And really, this can help you tailor make your character based on what you think the character might have done. Otherwise, you can do whatever you want. Acolyte becomes, I don't know, usurper of the crown, right? And then you have +2 dex, +1 charisma, and take whatever, insight and, I don't know, something that'll help you fight a lot. I don't know, persuasion. Yeah, so animal handling, whatever it is. So, all right. That is how backgrounds work now. And mix and match at your pleasure, at your leisure for your epic character. And now languages. Common sign language. This is an awesome addition. Dwarvish, Elvish, Giant, Gnomish. I've seen these all before. Rare languages, which of course, anytime you read a locked text or something deep in a dungeon, it'll be one of these rare languages, so take one. Okay, and then here we go, feats. All right, this is again one of the areas of biggest contention. There is first level feats, specifically first level feats. They're not just like a list of 30, 40 feats, heavy armor master, crusher, whatever it is. You can't just choose sharpshooter, not just choose any of those. You're limited to first level feats. Again, you don't have to play this version. If you prefer the 5th edition way, do the 5th edition way, and it's likely to change anyway based on feedback. We'll see. I do want to say, based on my thoughts, is that restricting the first level feats is going to be good for newer players. Sometimes there's a bit of decision paralysis, right? You show a newish player, even a player who's been around for a while, all these feats, and you're like, choose one. And sometimes it might take forever. It's going to require a lot of digging. It could be a lot of anxiety. So I think having a smaller list is going to be good for some players. Now, players are going to want to branch out and make a really specific build, or make a character that suits what they want to do. So it's really it's a bit of a 50-50 depending on whether you like this or don't like it. What else about this is that now you're going to have more feats going forward. When you get to 3rd level, you might have more feats, or 5th level. I mean, who knows what level distributions they are. And it might go kind of pyramid-y, right? It might be there was less and less per level. We've seen this before in other kind of RPGs, but they'll get stronger and stronger is the hope, right? I personally, as a DM, I've always, with little exception, given my characters, my players, a first level feat, right? And I know that makes characters very, very strong. Sometimes, not always, because not everyone always chooses like the combat feats, right? But what I think this allows is for increased depth in roleplay and storytelling and character creation. What do I mean by this? A first level fighter and another first level fighter, especially because they don't get their subclass until 3rd level, can be pretty much cookie cutter identical, right? As far as mechanically, you played one, you played them both. But if you give somebody level 1 feat, that means that they're going to have a different character than anybody else. I mean, not anybody else in the whole world, but anybody else, for example, at that table. A first level fighter with skilled, it's different than a first level fighter with polearm expert. And this is why I like first level feats, because they really give you choice and depth in character creation. So I'm for this. At least we'll see how it ends up looking. So let's take a look at a feat or two here. Alert is one of the ones here. Prerequisites, none. That might be interesting going forward if there's feats at a higher level. That does kind of lead into a kind of a build if you played MMOs or even kind of a tree games with like skill trees. So that I'm not so sure about because sometimes you run into I'm gonna Google or YouTube. I'm gonna net deck this this character, and okay, are they repeatable? No. Sometimes if it's maybe tough, right, or whatever, something gives you static bonuses, you can maybe double up on that. In the case of alert, when you roll initiative, you can add a proficiency bonus to the roll. Sounds good. And initiative swap. Immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap your initiative with the initiative of one willing ally in the same combat. You can't make the swap if your ally is incapacitated. That in itself is pretty cool and very strong for a first level feat, so I don't really think you're going to be missing out on too much. Maybe you're not going to find sharpshooter here or great weapon master, but there's some good ones. So, okay, and we're not going to go through many of these, but looks like they are quite expansive. Here's Healer. I have heard a little bit about this before. You're training Intuition, administer First Aid. If you have a Healer's Kit, you can become a Battle Medic, even if you're not a healer. So attend a creature within 5 feet of you as an action. And we expend one of its hit dice and roll that dice. Creature regains number of hit points equal to that roll plus your PB. And then healing rerolls. Whenever you roll a die to determine the number of hit points you restore with a spell, or with this feat's battle medic effect, you can re-roll that die if it rolls a 1. You can use a new roll. So again, I think this just adds to, look at this. This is really cool. I'm a fighter, but I can also, I was also a paramedic. And so now I can help heal, right? So this is what you miss with not having feats. Because they are agnostic, you can make non-cookie cutter builds, right? You can be a fighter who can also heal, right? I don't know. I think that's pretty fun. So, okay, Magic Initiate, that's back, skilled. Not too many. I hope they do add more. Even though, again, I'm sure they're trying to limit it, so decision paralysis stuff, make it accessible for new players. I would like to see more, despite that I am nominally in favor of these rules, of the feat rules. Finally, the rules glossary. Here we go. Now, this is the hotbed of discussion right now for D&D 1. You can relate to some 2014 Player's Handbook stuff here, and if you don't, you use this new set of rules. So arcane spells. Arcane spells draw from the ambient magic of the multiverse. Bards, sorcerers, warlock, and wizards harness this magic, as do artificers. For a partial list of arcane spells, see a spell list later. This is one of 3 spell paradigms, if you will. Arcane, divine, and primal. I think we'll get to them below. So now they're dividing all the spells into these 3 categories. It's going to be easier, depending on what class you are, to just reference that particular category. All right, so D20 test. This is a new catch-all term for ability checks, attack rolls, saving throws. You just want a test. So test, test, test. That's what it is. All right. The DM determines what D20 test is warranted given the circumstance. Sometimes we use D20 tests a little too much. Some of the characters can do it. Maybe just give them the option, but here it is. So, and the target must have no less than 5 and no greater than 30. So no more like, I don't want you to do this, so here's a 45 DC. So, all right, a little bit new here is rolling a 1. If you roll a 1, D20, the test automatically fails. So that's an attack, a saving throw, ability check, skill check, fails. We lost some modifiers. What do I think about this? Okay, before, skill checks did not fail on a 1. Attack did, but skill checks did not. Do I like this? Yes, because I think it's going to add a dynamic roleplay elements that weren't there before to D&D. And now, maybe that doesn't matter to some people. A lot of people are really combat focused or are really into the heroic aspect of D&D, which is a hero story, right? And they're powerful, the Avengers, or D&D characters now. But I think that having players fail is really important for the game. And it's going to help characters get out of the comfort zone, and it's going to help you as a DM tell more engaging stories, and it's going to have players have really cool stories for them to talk about after the game, right? They flubbed something, even though they're expecting to make it, because they're very athletic, and they really thought they could push this door down, but they don't. They trip and fall and smack their face in front of the door, on the door, and their friends then have to help them open the door. So I think that's good for role play. I'm on board with that. Rolling a 20. If you roll a d20, it succeeds. So it doesn't bypass limitations on the test, such as range and line of sight. Okay? D20 crit success, I'm okay with this. Critical hits. This, I'm not so sure. So weapons and arm strikes have a special feature for player characters, critical hits. Character roll is a 20 for an attack roll with weapon or strike, not spells. The attack is also a critical hit, means extra damage. How much extra damage? Not that much. So if a mace deals 1d6 and you crit, you're going to roll an extra 1d6, add your strength still for both. So 1d6 plus strength, you crit, 2d6 plus strength. If your weapon is not armor or has no damage dice, it deals no extra damage in a critical hit. All right, my thoughts on this. Again, I think what I'm seeing here is that D&D 1 is looking to be streamlined, especially to be accessible for new players. More and more people are playing D&D, and that's friggin' awesome. But I think there's still some hesitance, right? Because there are a lot of rules for D&D, especially if you're just jumping in and, you just saw Stranger Things, like, let's play D&D with a group of friends. They're like, okay, you need a DM. I'm like, oh, no, I need a DM. And you don't know, and there's so much to keep track of, right? Streamlining it, making it simple. You crit, okay, roll that dice again. That's it. Because then if you're looking at a paladin who's just used a whatever level smite, and they have such and such bonus on their sword, and suddenly they're rolling 2d6 plus 4d8, and they're doubling all those dice, so the amount of math is absurd, right? And because sometimes it is take a while, the arithmetic can be tough on some of these rolls. It's 7 plus 6 plus 8 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus, and then you're at the end you add plus 5, right? So this does help streamline the game, and I think it'll make combat a little faster. Again, if you go with these rules, you don't have to. I do think it make combat slightly faster. Critical hits can slow the game and pacing down and then who wants to be looking at this player who just critted, right? And it's trying to roll 10d6 for a sneak attack, and it's just, okay, all right, let's get through it. So, but we also don't know if those abilities could crit. We haven't seen the classes, so maybe sneak attack can crit. I don't know. But for now, I don't personally, I think this is a little weak. If you're used to playing grand heroic uber strength D&D characters. Will it make it more accessible? I believe so for new players. Will it make combat a little faster? Yes, I believe so as well. So I'm torn on this. I'm not sure where I land on it yet, but I think it's worth looking into, and I think it's worth giving some feedback to, or playtesting it really, and see what you think. Grappled condition. Your speed is 0. That can't change. You have disadvantage on attack rolls against any other character or anybody else besides the grappler. Okay. Movable. The grappler can move with slow condition, one of the new conditions, and escape. You can try to make this. Now this is the change here. It's not the athletics check, which you could bump up to, celestial levels. I now have a plus 55 to athletics, so I can grapple anybody ever. Here's God Titan. You're down. Now it's just a strength or dexterity check. So grapple build's probably a bit of a nerf. So I never played one. I actually kind of thought about it. We'll see how it works with this. Inspiration. Here's another big one. Before I give you my thoughts on inspiration, let's go through this. When you have inspiration, you can expend it to give yourself advantage on a d20 test. That's like usual. You must do so before rolling the die, also like usual. Gaining inspiration. The main way a character gains inspiration is to roll a d20. It's roll a 20 on a d20 test. The DM can also award inspiration. Okay, what does this mean? You roll a critical hit, quote unquote, right, on an attack or on a skill check or whatever it is. You gain inspiration. You can only ever have one inspiration, only one at a time. So you crit your attack, you do that little bit extra damage, and then you get an inspiration. I want to say that I'm also not in favor of inspiration. I think it's an okay crutch mechanic for new players. I do, however, think that it slows down the game tremendously. Now, why do I think this? Because you have to double think all your actions when you have inspiration, as in, when do I use this inspiration? And I know they say, oh, it'll come back more quickly now because it's a 20 and people can give it to each other, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's more processing when you're here to just have a good time and play and role play. So I'm going to do this attack. Do I need to use inspiration? Nah, wait. This skill check is coming up. Do I want to use inspiration? I don't know. I'll think about it. All right. Give me a skill test for this ability check. Hold on. How important is this? Because I want to use inspiration, but I'm not sure. And so you really slow down the game to a snail's pace. We used inspiration at first for one of our first campaigns here at Green and Garb, and we immediately nixed it. I know Critical Role did as well. They started using inspiration, and then they changed inspiration to just being, I think, like an extra D6, and they totally nixed it. And I think this applies, even if you're not doing like a film game, this still applies to your home table, just because how it slows the game down. Yeah, it can give you a saving grace, but I think that you should be willing to live and die by the dice. It really creates the most epic stories. So I'm not for this necessarily. Again, I'm okay if new players like this to really get them a get a jail free card, right? Like in Monopoly. I don't want to die, right? So I'll use this, and maybe the table's okay with things going a little slower. We're all learning. Fabulous. I'm not necessarily on board with this. It's unlikely that Hero Green and Garb will be using this inspiration at all. And now this ties back to critical hits. What do I mean by this? Critical hits, I think, have been nerfed, and they have, damage-wise, as I mentioned earlier, sneak attacks and science and a whole plethora of things. Because I think the idea is that you're doing a little less damage, but you're getting inspiration on top of it, right? So this is the weird thing. Are you going to play with the new critical hit rules if you don't like inspiration, right? Are you okay with nerf critical hits if you're not going to get the real bonus for it, which is inspiration? So that is a bit of a thing that I think the community needs to dialogue with Wizards, send their feedback, and everyone together, hopefully we can create D&D 1 to have something for everyone in that regard. So, all right, just to summarize then, critical hits, I do like that damage is not so many extra dice for the sake of combat and narrative flow, but I don't like how it's tied with inspiration to make that why that is how it is. So, and one last thing I wanted to mention about critical hits was that, as you can see here in this list, spells cannot crit. So they used to be able to crit, at least the ones that you rolled for attack, or like a firebolt or something like that, which was about maybe 1/4 of all the total spells, and the other 3/4 were saves, save or suck kind of situation. So no, you cannot no longer crit your spells. So maybe this disincentivizes a caster a little bit, playing a caster class. Now maybe they're trying to balance it as in casters were already too strong, or maybe casters just had too many dice, because a lot of the caster spells had a lot of dice, and if you're critting, then you're kind of, do I only roll one of these dice? Do I roll all of them? So that kind of unbalances them versus melee. But then again, martial classes did get really strong at the end once you have 2 or 3 or more attacks. And then spellcasters really only can cast 1 spell a turn unless you're a sorcerer. So I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think spells maybe should crit, just at least for the player's fun and that roleplay aspect of it. So I wish that there was a way to balance spells and martials, and there needs to be a way. So Wizards, get on that. All right, long rest. Moving on, 8 hours. Okay, you regain your hit points, you regain all your lost hit points, and you regain spent hit dice, up to half the creature's total. I'm not sure if that was the same before, but either way, this is the new rules, and this is so much better than I started with like a AD&D and D&D basic, where it's like you get 1 hit point back a day. And I remember some of the old like D&D games, for DOS or Genesis even and whatever, and you go to rest, right? And it's like 24 hours have elapsed, 104 hours have elapsed, 564 hours, once you have a fighter with like 100 hit points, you got to rest for like 5 months before you can even get back fighting. And you would just do that like in the middle of a dungeon. Oh, it was terrible. And it was funny, but terrible. Okay, spell list, here we go. So, Arcane, Divine, and Primal. Yes, got it, first try. 3 spell lists. Some first level spells. I'm not going to go through all of them. All of these I think are reprints. There are some notable missing ones, which you maybe have seen already. Eldritch Blast is not here. That could be like a, maybe a Warlock particular like a class ability. But this is it. I do like the streamline here. Maybe you're missing a little bit of the hybrid classes, like for example a Bard was, where they can cure, plus do some damage cantrips. For I think the Hideous Laughter is under Arcane now, but then it looks like Bard won't be able to access here, like Bless and Cure Wounds, for example. So we'll see if you can dip into these somehow. Maybe now, some classes now for Sorcerer, a lot of the spellcasters give you spells, right? They'll say, you get this, and this spell at 3rd level, and so on. So maybe that's still a way to crisscross between spell list. Again, I like hybridity. I like being able to not just be a one-trick pony, not just be the fighter with martial weapons, but maybe the fighter that can cast some spells or heal or whatever it is. So, yeah, I like this, but I hope there's some caveats to it. All right, and that's it. I think this is basically the whole D&D 1 build that we've just gone through, and it was a bit overlong, but I wanted to make sure that maybe everything was covered a little bit. So what are your thoughts on D&D 1? I hope this helped you learn a little bit of something. I hope my players like it or are willing to give me their feedback on it. I'm not sure if we'll incorporate this playtest until we see more of the playtest material, including classes, and see how it all kind of synergizes together. And yeah, this has been my thoughts. Please, seriously, give me your thoughts in the comments. I want to see what you think about all these things. Critical hits, inspiration, again. Yeah, so thank you for watching. See you next time.